Good evening to you. Coming up on BBC London. TfL gets £250,000 funding package from the government, but why it still leaves questions over future transport in London. Passenger groups agree more money is needed.
It's nice of the government to have offered what they have, but it's significantly less than we would hope for, and then we hope that in future we'll see a longer-term settlement to a much greater level.
Meanwhile, talking of travelling, with the Christmas getaway almost upon us, I'll have all you need to know about closed stations and disruption over the festive period.
Also ahead tonight. Breaking down barriers in the city, the scheme seeking to attract and retain the next generation of talent from diverse backgrounds. Plus, more than 600 pets stolen in London so far this year. We speak to one of the lucky owners reunited with her dog. And meet the Brixton Chamber Orchestra taking revamped Christmas classics and festive cheer to estates across Lambeth. A very warm welcome to the programme. First tonight, news of a £250 million funding package from the government coming to Transport for London to spend on new trains and investment projects. On the one hand, it sounds like good news, and it does mean new Piccadilly line trains will be built. However, it does raise questions over funding for other infrastructure schemes like the Bakerloo line extension. Well, let's delve into this a bit more with our transport correspondent Tom Edwards. Hi Tom, what do you make of it? What does it mean?
Well, what we're talking about here is something called capital expenditure. That's the funding that they use for infrastructure and to renew and repair roads and rail, things like that. So if you have a look at the context of what TfL have been spending this year, for example, they've spent a lot of money, £1.89 billion on infrastructure. Of that, 200 million, as you can see there, came from central government. Now, going forward, TfL wanted a lot more. They wanted £500 million a year over 5 years. Now, what the government have decided is they're going to fund, as you can see there, only £250 million for 2024. It isn't terrible by any means, but it just maintains the status quo. There's no big, huge uplift that could go on to future projects.
Okay, thanks for giving us that context. Does it mean projects will have to be cut?
Well, that's the question, and we don't know at the moment. They're going to have to work this through. What it does mean, though, Piccadilly line trains are still going to go ahead. They're being built, as you can see here, up in East Yorkshire, in Goole. They're still going to be built there. Other than that, the other projects that we have talked about that are unfunded, the Bakerloo line extension, Piccadilly line signalling, they won't be funded by this. So there are questions there. TfL, as I say, is working through its business plan. There's a really interesting line in this letter from government to Transport for London. They say TfL must plan prudently. It doesn't exactly scream that we're going to get these massive injections of cash and investment in the future.
So it's all about what it means for future projects. So what has the reaction been?
Well, I think the response has been mixed. The Campaign for Better Transport, they say it doesn't help to have TfL on a short leash like this. This is what they had to say. Have a listen to this.
We wrote to the Transport Secretary last week and asked for what TfL have said they need, which is £500 million a year. TfL have done very well to balance their books in terms of being revenue neutral, but they really need the capital investment to get through some of the big projects like Piccadilly line trains, upgrading the signalling, and the things that we really need for Transport for London to grow. We know that a whole quarter of the economic output in the UK comes from London. A healthy London transport system is a healthy UK overall. So the way we see it is it's nice of the government to have offered what they have, but it's significantly less than we would hope for, and then we hope that in future we'll see a longer-term settlement to a much greater level.
Now, business groups say that TfL needs a long-term settlement so it can plan for the future. I think the problem here is there's a lot of uncertainty politically. We've got the mayoral election, general election next year. So what this is really doing is kicking the can down the road.
Okay, Tom, thanks for taking us through that. Appreciate it. That's our transport correspondent, Tom Edwards. Well, let's stay with how we get around the capital for a moment, because with only a week until Christmas Day, many Londoners are making plans to travel to see family and friends. But the festive period also means engineering works and warnings from Network Rail to plan your journey to avoid being caught out. Harry Lowe is standing by at King's Cross tonight with all we need to know, Harry.
Yes, that's right. The great Christmas getaway is just around the corner, and this Friday and Saturday are expected to be the busiest days of all on the network. That's according to Network Rail. The RAC, motoring organisation, has said that it expects 21 million car journeys to take place between now and Christmas Eve, and it's already branded the 22nd Frantic Friday. As for here at King's Cross, on Christmas Eve, this station will be closed entirely. No services to and from here whatsoever, and that's due to a signalling equipment upgrade. It's the same story across town at Paddington. No services at all there on Christmas Eve, and that will actually remain closed until the 28th of December, which means that Britain's second busiest stations will have no services at all for 4 days over the festive period. As for Christmas Day itself, no services on Christmas Day as usual, and there will be, though, a limited number of services on the railway network on Boxing Day. No Elizabeth line services, though, for people on Boxing Day, although the Tube is running a Sunday service, and that means that your best way to get to Heathrow will be travelling via the Piccadilly line. Network Rail says that overall 95% of the network will operate business as usual over the festive period. And when you remember back to last year and those series of strikes which really crippled the transport network and made life a lot more difficult than it will be this year for passengers. As for airports, this is expected to be the busiest week ever for festive travel for UK airports, and Heathrow have told us that they expect Friday will probably be the most popular day for passengers. If you're a driver driving through London, in the centre of London, the congestion charge is suspended between Christmas Day and New Year's Day inclusive. But if your car is not ULEZ compliant, you will still have to pay the £12.50 levy every single day except for Christmas Day itself. As for trying to stay up to date with all of this information, don't forget you can listen to BBC Radio London to stay abreast of all these developments, and it doesn't need me to remind you that it is probably best if you check before you travel.
Absolutely, and breathe. A lot to get through there. Thanks very much, Harry. Appreciate it. And good luck getting in and out and across the capital, of course. Right now, though, lots more to come tonight, including...
After being closed for more than a year, we're with some of the South London swimmers braving the cold as Tooting Bec Lido reopens to club members.
Is the city diverse enough in every sense? Businesses could soon be forced to collect and report their diversity and inclusion data under proposals by the Financial Services Authority to help improve that picture. A study has found white men from higher socioeconomic backgrounds are 30 times more likely to succeed in financial services than working-class ethnic minority women. Our Work and Money correspondent, Tara Welsh, has been speaking to young people about the challenges of entering the sector.
My name is Yuvraj and I'm 17 and I come from East London, and once a week I attend the Catalyst programme where we learn about the fundamentals of financial services.
Yuvraj is making the hour-long journey from his school to the city. Today he's learning about bonds from those that currently work in banking.
You know, if I'm looking at, I come into the office, we're looking at buying something, say Coca-Cola have got a new deal out.
He's one of 54 young people on a 2-year programme aiming to bring more diversity to the financial sector.
I think before the programme there was a lot of barriers, sort of seeing someone from an ethnic minority and trying to work in the finance industry in London. It was seen as like a no-go. But now it's shown me that actually you can. There are people that from my background that are in the city that are working there.
But businesses in the City of London don't always reflect the makeup of the capital generally.
We've been in the industry for over a decade and we're not seeing enough diverse individuals coming through. So the need is great, especially in the investment industry.
The regulator, the Financial Conduct Authority, says that the sector needs to improve and is planning to get businesses to collect and report their diversity data and to set targets to address underrepresentation. And it comes as a recent study found that white men from higher socioeconomic backgrounds are 30 times more likely to succeed in the financial sector than working class women from ethnic minority backgrounds.
Socioeconomic background has the greatest impact on career progression, but if you lay on top ethnicity and gender, there is even more disadvantage.
And so in finance, we like to make things more complicated.
Some of the young people here say they didn't even know working in the city was an option.
I wasn't aware because I didn't have guidance. So this program kind of opened up doors for me that I didn't previously have.
It's so hard to get into the industry just because there's a lot of nepotism within the financial industry as well.
I think there's definitely barriers, especially in areas where there's high levels of deprivation, where the education would not be maybe as good quality than maybe private schools and grammar schools.
While many believe change is happening, it can be difficult for those from working class backgrounds to progress in the city.
When you enter the city and you come from an underrepresented background or a non-traditional background in some senses, there are often very strong pressures to assimilate to whatever the dominant norm is. And that can be really hard. It can be quite psychologically exhausting. It can distract from your everyday work. I often kind of say that in the city, and this is a bit of a generalisation, you can be different as long as you're more or less the same.
So one of the things that we're also trying to do is not just help the young people and give them a pathway, but also to change the industry so the industry understands that they have people who have a different perspective and a different outlook, and get the industry to change, and maybe the two can meet in the middle.
You know, spending is typically always above.
These young people say they will be part of making a difference and making the city a more diverse place. Tara Welsh, BBC London.
I'm not entirely sure what age.
Next, for months now, London's boroughs have been warning of a growing funding gap between the income they can generate and the amount they are spending. According to London councils, the capital needs £600 million to balance the books, with 9 in 10 boroughs facing a funding shortfall. Well, earlier today, the government announced it's making an extra £64 billion available to local authorities across England to help struggling authorities. Is it enough? Our reporter Lakshmi Gopal is here. Lakshmi, just decode this for us. What does it mean?
Well, Riz, let's start first of all by reminding ourselves what this money is used for. So it's for collecting your bins and running your libraries, maintaining your roads, education, social care. And people watching at home probably won't be surprised to hear that councils are facing increasing and significant financial pressures, and that's being driven by inflation, rising costs and a higher demand for services. Just to give you one example, the cross-party group London Councils says the worsening homelessness crisis is a big factor, saying 1 in 50 Londoners is currently homeless and living in temporary accommodation arranged for by their local borough. So, with all these pressures, what could further financial pressure mean? Well, councils technically can't declare bankruptcy per se, but what they can do is issue a Section 114 notice, which means they can't commit to further spending. And again, viewers might remember that we've reported on this happening in Croydon, Slough and Woking. And when they do, of course, this has a huge effect on residents.
So what has the government said?
Well, the government says this announcement of a £64 billion package, an above inflation rise of 6.5%, is in recognition of the pressures being faced by local authorities and that they're showing support in these challenging times. But local councils say that actually boroughs wanted a 9% increase, the same as the previous year. And they say that budgets are on a knife edge, saying that they're expecting a shortfall between them of £500 million next year. And the boss of one think tank said that what the government is announcing today is simply too little too late.
We've seen councils across the country pulling every lever they can to make ends meet. They're putting up charges on everything from swimming pools to cremations. They're dipping into their reserves. They're increasing council tax by the maximum that they're allowed to. This settlement won't be enough to prevent any of that. So we're going to see councils across London and across the country making changes to service provision, giving customers just a little bit less while still asking citizens to pay even more in council tax.
So that is an idea of the knock-on effect of it. You're getting less for your money. So council tax bills will be going up for Londoners who are already facing increasing pressures, as we know from the cost of living crisis.
OK, Lakshmi, thank you. Now, it's upsetting and distressing when a much-loved pet is stolen. So far this year, there have been around 650 animal thefts in London alone, and only 6% have been reunited with their owners. Jay Gardner has been to meet one of them, Claire Hashim, whose dog Buddy was stolen from outside a shop in Hayes.
A disaster for any pet owner. 4-year-old Buddy was stolen in November outside of a shop in West London.
I was very, very upset. I tried to look for him straight away, so I went up and down the street. I couldn't see any trace of Buddy. We did everything possible. We went onto every road in Hayes. We're calling his name. There was no sighting of Buddy at all.
Pet theft in London has been on the rise in recent years, reaching the highest level in recorded history in 2022. After an initial search and calling the police, Claire decided to continue searching online.
He was on Facebook, he was on social media, every platform, and he was even on Twitter.
Having your dog stolen would be a nightmare for any owner, but for Claire, it was even more important.
My son is autistic and he's on the spectrum, and he's got issues with his emotions, feelings. He can't really express when he's angry. And Buddy is a support dog, so he knows exactly when Ruben is not feeling well.
Claire called the police twice during her search for Buddy. She said it was up to her to find him as the police didn't show much interest.
It makes me feel very worried, very sad, and I believe it's very unfair. A pet is not a property. They consider them as a property. And my life wouldn't be the same without Buddy. Life without him would be a disaster.
Some good news there. Well, Jay Gardner reporting. In response to the theft of Buddy, the Met said pet theft incidents should always be reported to police. It advises owners to microchip their pets and avoid leaving them unattended where possible. Now let's get the latest on Tom Lockyer, the Luton Town footballer who collapsed during this weekend's Premier League match. All day, fans have been sending messages of support to the 29-year-old defender. He remains in hospital and the club say his condition is stable. With more on this, we can go live to our sports reporter James Burridge. Hi James, tell us more.
Yes, welcome to Kenilworth Road, where there has been so much support for Tom Lockyer, for the club, from around the world following Saturday's awful incident at Bournemouth. Tom remains in hospital, where he is receiving treatment supported by his family and all the medical team there. Now, there were thousands of fans at the game from Luton. Mike was one of them. Mike, the atmosphere was extraordinary. Tell me what happened.
It was very distressing, and it was an awful experience to be part of, in fairness. I mean, there was over 1,000 Luton Town fans in the ground, about 10,000 Bournemouth fans, and we felt helpless as fans, to be fair, because as soon as Tom fell to the floor, we knew he's got history, and the medical staff ran on instantly, the doctors, the medics, Rob Edwards ran on, Philip Billing tended Tom instantly, and Rob ushered the players away from the scene because it was just too distressing for the players to see. So as minutes rolled on, Tom was on the ground for about 10-12 minutes. There was an eerie silence descended on the ground for those first 3 minutes.
Yes, our thoughts with Tom, with his family and everyone here at Luton Town.
Yeah, absolutely. James, many thanks, and to Mike as well. Thank you from Luton. To something now that perhaps we associate with a hot summer's day. But for the brave, the UK's largest outdoor freshwater pool finally reopened after being closed for more than a year for essential repairs and a multi-million-pound revamp. The pool is available again for use by club members, with a full reopening set for April, as Chris Legg reports.
Braving the waters once more. After a 13-month closure for repairs, Tooting Bec Lido reopened to South London Swimming Club members this morning. Why would anyone want to swim in an outdoor swimming pool a week before Christmas Day?
It's not for me to say, but there's been loads of research about the benefits of cold water swimming to the body. I spent only about 5 minutes in the pool today, and you can see I'm shivering. However, as my body warms up, the endorphins are just making me very, very happy.
It's just,
completely different world. It could be like a really dull grey sky, and when you get in here, you just feel like completely alive. It's beautiful.
It's refreshing. I mean, get out and you think, oh, that's cold. But then as you start to warm up, you think, I feel great now.
We've been in a few times when it's been iced over the top, so that's always good fun, where someone has to, the lifeguards break it up and then slide the ice sheet back so you can have a bit of room.
Well, rather them than me, although to be fair, given some of the conditions club swimmers are prepared to take to the open waters in today, it's pretty mild. But if you'd rather wait for warmer climes, then the good news is that Tooting Bec Lido will be open to the general public as normal from the months of April to September next year. Wandsworth Council has spent £4 million upgrading the UK's largest open-air pool, including a new pump room to replace the original one installed in the 1930s.
The building had begun to sink, so they had to build a new building, new filtration system. It now pumps the water, circulates much faster than it used to, so we're going to have cleaner water.
Husband and wife Andrew and Deborah first met at the Lido in 1994.
I swam here through all my 3 pregnancies, and then all of our boys have swum here ever since.
It's wonderful to be back and just to see all the people that we haven't seen for months, and get back in the water and
yeah. And to know as well that the pool now has been restored
and it's got a safe future,
and so it'll be here when our boys are our age.
At one point the venue's future was uncertain, but South London swimmers will be chilling out at Tooting Bec Lido for many years to come. Chris Slegg, BBC London.
Now, if that's too energetic for you, sit back and relax to the sound of the Brixton Chamber Orchestra. It's made up of musicians from the local area who are taking their festive cheer and revamped Christmas classics, combining orchestral symphonies with grime and R&B to council estates in Lambeth. Jessica Ure went to hear them in action and find out more.
Who doesn't love the magic of Christmas music? But this is more than just your average concert. Championing classical music for local communities, it comes with a twist. Brixton Chamber Orchestra are touring council estates in Lambeth as part of their Christmas Estates tour. With their diverse mix of grime to gospel and classical to jazz, there's something for everyone.
Last Christmas I gave you my heart, but the very next day you gave it away.
What was the thinking behind starting something like this?
Well, I lived on Tulse Hill Estate, and it wasn't the safest place to live, and people were crying out for opportunities and excuses to get together, really. I don't think many orchestras play as much rap as we do. We also really enjoy making rap tracks out of classical music. It's all about power and fronting, and who could do that better than when you have a 25-piece orchestra behind you.
Every musician here is born and raised locally. At 17, Kia is their youngest.
I just love how we're able to give music to members of the community that might not have access to it. I think it's such a beautiful thing, playing in front of new audiences, and especially in front of children who might not have heard instruments before.
You know, mixing classical, funk, soul, hip-hop, grime, you know, it's fresh, and yeah, I think everyone gets to hear something they wouldn't usually listen to.
People on this estate have been struggling for many years now, but to have this, you know, it's just fantastic at Christmas. It really sets off, you know, a good spirit.
It's free to come along to the Christmas Estates tour, with 3 more performances this week. And if you're after some festive cheer, then look no further. Jessica Ure, BBC London.
And in case you wanted to see one of those upcoming performances, they'll be at Chandler Hall, Kingswood House and Lambeth Town Hall on different evenings this week. So a big week for them, and I suppose a big week for the festive weather too. Georgie is here with all we need to know. Hi there.
Hello, Riz. Yeah, I'm afraid to say at the moment it doesn't look like we're going to have a white Christmas, but you never know. Watch this space. I'm ever hopeful. This is what was over the capital for most of today. Grey, leaden skies, just a little bit of brightness for those of us who are lucky. Now let's look at the satellite picture from earlier. You can see the extent of the cloud cover right across the British Isles. I feel like most of it is actually over London. Initially this evening, it's going to be dry, great news if you're heading out, but southwesterly winds will pick up through the early hours. The cloud will thicken, and we're going to start to see some outbreaks of heavy, showery rain towards dawn. So fairly mild tonight, with lows of 10 Celsius. Now that rain is going to be slow and sluggish to gradually clear away tomorrow, but behind it, drier and hopefully brighter. The winds are very northwesterly tomorrow, so actually feeling a bit fresher tomorrow compared to today with highs of 10 Celsius. So high pressure waiting in the wings, but before that, we've got various frontal systems to contend with and a tightening of the isobars. So the winds really becoming a feature from Wednesday onwards. They're going to be west-northwesterly for Wednesday. There's going to be scattered showers, but you'll really notice the winds if you're out and about. But plenty of dry spells in between. Temperature-wise, it's still really mild for the middle half of September with highs of 13 Celsius. Thursday will be a similar day. Still the risk of 1 or 2 scattered showers. Those really brisk winds as well. And again, we're going to hold on to these mild values with highs of 13 Celsius. It won't be until Friday that we see the benefits of this ridge of high pressure. So as we edge towards the all-important Christmas weekend, things finally beginning to settle down. A bit of drizzle around on Friday, but by Saturday, finally, the winds begin to ease. For Christmas Eve, some sunshine, hopefully, and looks like Christmas Day bright at first, the risk of showers later. Riz, back to you.
Georgie, thanks very much. And that's where we leave you this Monday evening. But you know there's plenty more on our social media and website. Everything from King Charles's freezers, helping feed families, to the incredible Londoner and his dogs who run 365 consecutive marathons for charity. From all of us here, bye-bye.